We see a guy who says that he won. At this time a screen of the game is shown, and people are shocked that he passed it, the first in the whole world. A game that boasts unrealistic difficulty, defense of the empire, and now 10 years after the release of someone successfully managed to pass it. Right, this someone was our hero. He was a streamer and always said that no matter how difficult a game is, it exists to be played. The streamer who plays only the most difficult games, even if he doesn't talk about it, is a typical nerd. Someone gave him $300, it was all thanks to them. He was the first person to pass this absurdly difficult game, which no one else could pass in the 10 years since the release. His game technique is very cool, there is no better achievement for a gamer. But if he regrets something, the way subscribers have become attached to the characters during this time while he was playing, they hoped that all of them would survive the final battle. But in the end, all but the main character Lucas died. His goal was not to reach the end without losing, the final boss princess of the lake that cannot sleep, the game was over. Only here Lucas remained standing in the same position. The last location was completed, MVP Lucas, Hell difficulty mode, Iron Man, completed, world ranking first. On Lucas remained standing in the same position in front of the boss monster that he killed on top of the mountain of corpses of enemies and allies. Why so? Even though he was just a character in the game from the back, he looked a little sad. Shouldn't the developer give him some kind of prize or something after finishing the game? Because they were criticized for this level of difficulty and he was able to pass it, so he deserved something. I needed a reward, he had fun spending time with the guys. But the greed in his eyes was still present, he would have taken the reward if they offered. Mr. A had been missing for a long time, he hadn't made a sequel in these 10 years and there was no way to contact him. But at some point, a greeting from the same director of Empire Defense appeared on the screen. To begin with, he would like to thank the guy because he had already given up. Thinking that no one could succeed, but that the hero could, he was really relieved and thanked him again. They still have hope. Maybe he's talking about creating Empire 2. The guy has proven his worth, how good his skills are, so he's asking to go through it with him. It's just some person looking for attention. It can't be that the creator of the game was on his stream. It's worth removing this person from the broadcast. He turned to the director, but then his vision went dark. He may have overplayed it. It's okay, subscribers will call for help if he faints. The guy woke up on the battlefield and did not understand what was happening. Guns were firing, there was a smell of gunpowder everywhere, knights. There was a war. He wondered what was going on there if they were in the middle of a war. A knight began to run at him. The guy was very afraid that it was an enemy and told him not to approach, but then he only worried about his condition. He apologized for scaring the guy and fell on his knees to repent. There was an explosion. There was some green matter in the sky. The enemy was advancing and everyone was trying to protect each other. Some were pierced through. It was a huge spider. The hero's body didn't move. It's a dream or a hallucination. This whole situation is too improbable. The spider swung at him, but to die like this, chickens to death. As the spider continued to attack, a certain guy with blonde hair saved it. His face looked very familiar. It was Lucas. The guy burst into tears. He's glad that the guy finally called him by his first name. Even though he hurt his head, no matter how much he served him, he could never remember his name. If it's the real Lucas, then it can't be. A hero inside the Empire's defense. This game is the most hellish challenge he came to just before he woke up here, defending the Empire. It's a game where he has to kill endlessly, endless hordes of monsters rushing in. It's a game with a hell of a complex defense mechanic. The hero did not understand how he ended up inside the game. Lucas explained that the Black Spider army is attacking. They may lose the forward operational base, but these spiders are not active after sunset. It will set in 30 minutes. Therefore, until time runs out, His Highness must do his best to hold on. Why was he trying to protect His Highness and address him like this? So who was he now? The Black Spider army retreated after sunset. The guy was not too happy and asked what the current date was. Where he was today is the last day of February 649, according to the imperial calendar. This is an advanced operational base located at the intersection of roads. The so-called Fortress City. Since tomorrow is the 1st of March, the 1st of March 649 according to the imperial calendar, an attack of monsters on an advanced operational base. A very familiar situation in a very familiar place. Well, of course, after spending half a year playing the game Defense of the Empire, he was hundreds of times in this location on the exact same story date, undergoing training. His name Ash was shouted by a guy, Ash von Hader Everblack. Why do we give him this particular role? The sick third prince of the empire, the worst commander who caused a huge number of soldiers to die in the fortress city, as well as the character who died the most terrible death in the story, is exactly him. In the commander's private dorm room, the following happened. He swore at himself in the mirror for not being able to sit still and keep his head down. Classic defensive game. Defend the empire. The reasons why this game is known as something impassable difficulty of the hell level, as well as the Iron Man mode, which forcibly saves the entire process by collecting both the difficulty of the game, was called Iron Man's Hell, and he is the only one who passed this mode. It would seem that he doesn't care what moment of the game he gets into, and is confident in his abilities, and that he can find a way out except for training. System window. This location is impossible to pass. The training was designed so that he would be defeated no matter what, because the story begins after Lucas alone escapes from the invasion of monsters. In this game, the plot that lasted 3 years, you can only start hunting an army of black spiders after a year and a half, and how should he now defeat hundreds of these creatures at the very beginning? You need to pull yourself together, because he has already passed this game. If he puts together all his knowledge and experience, he will definitely be able to find a way out, but there is no way out. He looked at the system window and did not understand what the levels of these spiders were, and there were more than 1,000 of them here. What was it? Besides the strength of the fortress walls at the very bottom, the only thing that could be used was a mana cannon, and what should he do now? His chances of winning are too small. He must find the path with the highest probability of success. Relax already. I play a game with the Iron Man mode, it becomes impossible to just make a save, and in which case start again at the moment when he messes up, the whole game will be Zaru and Ina. Therefore, it is important to calculate every action to the millisecond. I have been playing this game for the last 6 months. He realized something, that in any situation, you need to do something, and there is always a way to survive. He needed something with a slightly better chance of survival, something to be sure of. So he found it, ran out of the house, and started looking for Lucas, asking him to assemble a squad under his direct control. He means his guards, and he has never called them up before, so why so suddenly? He said one word to him, and he said 10, and His Highness thought of a way to win. Everyone gathered around. There were familiar faces of Lily, Ken, Damien. Of course they were unfamiliar to him. He had seen events in which they had died countless times, but each time, he curled up into a fist because he had lost a comrade today. Then the hero realized that he was in the same state when it was over game training. At what time was some strange status imposed on him from the very beginning? He died first, and also could not use his skills, although he was a healer, literally with the most important role. They started with His Highness explaining their roles for tomorrow. Lily's class is Mage, Fire Element. She is the main damage taker of this party, able to hit with one powerful spell after another. She will be their shield, blocking the attacks of spiders as a tank. The girl did not understand because she is a magician. Ken is a shield fighter, able to keep aggro at the forefront. He uses mass taunt to attract attention and then takes damage with his body. In short, he is a tank. The guy should be able to sneak into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and make a mess. The younger kid, as he told Damien, is a very important class in the game from now on. He is the shooter in this squad and will shoot at the most important targets, and last of all Lucas, who will command the soldiers and maintain the front line. The man was very angry. Did he really say all this in all seriousness? He dragged them into a dangerous situation because of a bad squad and still continues to talk nonsense. But it wasn't him, it was that Ash. Maybe it really sounds like nonsense, but this is a location that cannot be passed by standard methods, so to pass this crazy loca, you need to become a madman yourself, right? So he won't back down towards the Emperor's son as well as the Supreme Commander. He dares to insubordinate. The man immediately apologized. After all, if the hero lost his grip, it would be over for him. Since his plan was completely reckless, he had to make them obey without daring to snap back. Each of them is able to complete their tasks, right? Since they ended up in a Psycha's body, why wouldn't they accept his behavior? The prince is really crazy. Doesn't he know how valuable a mage is? The guy ran the girl through with a sword. He doesn't know if the developer added it for fun or not, but all starting characters have a hidden skill, special skills that completely contradict their roles. Lily, she was wounded as a child by a calf when a horde of goblins invaded the village. After that incident, she received the skill Fireskin. This skill, created by the fear of sharp weapons, she can defend against physical attacks, turns her body into fire. Each use of the skill consumes MP. As long as she has enough mana, she can defend against any physical attack. The tank skill of the main damage collector. The game did not have the opportunity to use reality, because another thing is that he is going to squeeze everything out of this skill, a location that cannot be passed. When he had no choice but to use the cheats, he told whoever put him in here to just watch him go through this terrible game, then grab him by the scruff of the neck and spank him. The method of proof may have been very crude for a girl, but that's okay. Now wouldn't be the time to tell her how he knew all this. Ken, who was a small-time thief from the slums as a child and had a lot of mouths to feed in his family, didn't have an easy time becoming a knight. Where he got all this from, it was completely irrelevant. What was important was how he could use his skills, the pickpocket survival method, the habit from when he was a petty thief. He could hide his presence in the face of danger and avoid attention. It would take a lot of XP for one use. That is, he can become invisible at any time and hide in order to avoid attention. He pointed his sword at him. Either he will answer or you need to show another example. The man was afraid. He really can do this. In this case he will also be able to fulfill his order. And now Damien, the most important person in his plan, is him. He has incredibly good eyesight, which is why he was able to see his friend's death so clearly. They were with him from the same city, grew up in the same shelter in the midst of a battle. He sacrificed himself for him. Well, why did His Highness bring them here? Why? The guy burst into tears. Well, what great purpose did they pursue? Or were their lives cheap, nothing more than a toy for them? He's begging for Wong to be brought back. He's begging for his friend to be brought back. He can blame His Highness if he wants to, he can even despise him. But his friend Wong sacrificed himself to save his life. Is he going to sit here and wait for death? Whether or not he really wants to give up the life that his friend died for just because he's on the verge of dying because of a stupid commander, he should grab any lead and avenge his friend, kill the spiders, get out of here alive and teach a lesson. When His Highness asked him if he wanted to kill the spiders, the guy said yes, and if he wanted to kill him, he also agreed. The guy promises that if they get out of here alive, he will be the one to take his life whenever that happens. But if the plan fails, they are all doomed to die anyway. If that happens, he will let him be the one to take his life. He swears on the honor of the imperial family. Only one day he asks to follow his orders. Sometimes hatred should be used as an engine even if this hatred is directed at himself. He will not justify himself because of his mistake. Their army is almost destroyed, but if they follow his plan, they can drive away these spiders. A small but chance of victory there is one. So just once, which is why you should believe him and do as he says. Finally his squad, his right hand is assembled. He doesn't know if this hand seems like a royal straight, a flush, or just a bad one, but he has no choice but to put it on the line, all of them. The soldiers were asking if His Highness would really be okay. So don't worry and let them do as he said. His plan is just a pair of turnips. While the teammates buy time, they find the queen who gives the orders, and then blow her head to hell with this mana cannon. Having removed the restrictions, they have increased her magic power quite well. Now she has to deal damage even to the queen. The only problem is that it is not possible to see the queen from such a long distance. Human eyes are simply not capable of this. Well, what to do then? Of course, create a map. Ash's skill, map creation. Ability to see the entire area as a mini-map. When he first saw these terrible stats, he was shocked. Okay, the skill was preserved and thank you for that. The map was ready, now they would see where the queen was hiding. If only they could find the boss's mark. This mark didn't have a mission target here. The enemy queen, it doesn't show up on the map. A man, His Highness, came to him, collected all the stamina potions left in the fortress. He told him to go outside and attract attention. Can he handle it? For the girl, he has a painful role in case of penetration of spiders into the artillery unit. He expects her to use the skill of skin from fire and block the entrance. Everyone has gone to their respective positions. They must hold out, shouted Lucas. They need to buy some time until His Highness defeats the queen. This proud expression definitely means that His Highness has completed all the preparations. Cold sweat dripped down his cheeks. Things didn't go according to plan, but the knight has already gone on the attack. It's worth keeping calm. The purpose of training is not to kill the boss, so it's not surprising that it doesn't show up on the map. Probably the queen will appear after a full-scale attack. They have a strong rear and scarecrows prepared in case of an emergency, so this is the only place where the queen can be. He pointed his finger and asked the guy to look in the distance. All he saw were spiders just sitting there doing nothing. He thought it was possible, but could it be? The queen must be among them. If he is talking about a monster whose upper part is from a man to a niche from a spider, then this is it. It looks quite scary, do not be afraid. Soon it will get hit by a cannon and die. You need to deploy an artillery installation with a muzzle to the southwest. The mana charge was completed. His Highness told the boy to grab the lever, but he's not sure he can handle it. He's never done anything like this before, and he's suddenly forcing it. Of course the guy can miss. He will take all the responsibility, even if he fails. And mess up everything, this is normal. He will take all the responsibility, the hero repeated once again. The responsibility always lies with the commander, whether the soldiers do what they are told. All the boy has to do is pull the trigger and let him remember that he is taking revenge for a friend. The eyes of 1,000 miles were activated, that's how to beat them to death. His VSO asked the scout where the projectile came from. It hit the target exactly and landed in the center of the pandemonium of monsters. They were very happy, hugged the guy, he is impressive. Whether exactly the first time Ali takes, he just did what was right for him. The moment he pulled the trigger, his body started moving on its own. It was all thanks to the eye of 1,000 miles abnormal skill that allowed him to always hit the target in the game. He was a character who couldn't hold a weapon in his hands. But here, as soon as he touched it, everyone saw his power. Everyone thought that everything was finished, but a swarm of spiders began to move towards them. It was a square formation. Did not the spiders hit the queen directly go to the artillery unit? It couldn't be. The queen had sent out her orders so damn fast. The fight continued. The man had only one potion left, maybe just to escape, he thought. And when he saw the dark sawdust flying in the air, he fell to his knees. They all continued to attack the queen. The target was hit right in the bull's eye, but the spiders kept moving. The queen is still alive. Isn't there enough damage? Initially, the black spider queen would have died from 1 or 2 hits. After all, she's not that strong compared to battle-type mobs. On the queen of this training location, he doesn't have any information. What if her stats are completely different? What if she has a special skill? And what if this skill doesn't allow her to be killed? What should I do? Due to the powerful explosion of the Yagana, the cannon will soon reach its limit, His Highness explained. In addition, it has suffered a lot of damage. They can't shoot as much as they expected. The knight talks too much out of business. How many times can they still shoot? A total of 5 times. They've already fired twice, so there are 3 shots left. 3 shots left. They have no choice but to finish off the Spider Queen in those 3 shots. Moreover, the guy's eyes. It looks like the eyes from 1,000 miles away have a side effect. There are still 2 shots left. Can he hold on until then? Fortunately, the walls of the central castle are doing a good job. The destroyer is coming. The monster is getting closer and closer. He is trying to break through. The guy did not know how to act in the game. There was nothing like that. He said to direct all the fire at the destroyers. Mozart ran straight at them. The castle walls will collapse. Lucas has ordered them to raise their weapons. They are going down to the first floor. They need to pull themselves together, those who are down there protecting them. They must shoot at the queen. Until these monsters get to the artillery unit, they must finish off the queen. The hit was. But she was still alive. Immediately reload the gun for the next shot, the main character quickly ordered. Lucas shouted that they needed to protect the artillery. They had to protect the Imperial Prince. Monsters attacked humans and the number of victims continued to grow. But the guy didn't know when he was playing the game, that they were all real people. The number of dead warriors reached 142. Death. It's not just a number accompanied by heart-rending smells. He closed the status window. With this speed, 5 shots. Everything will collapse as soon as they reach the 4th. What should the hero do to get out of this situation does not occur to him at all. Then Ken appeared behind the evil spirits. He drank the potion and began to pay attention to himself. He ran away from the monsters. Why don't they try to find him? The man used the pickpocket survival method. His health was not strong enough, the skill was rejected. The men were torn apart by monsters. The guy could hear clearly, have a terrifying sound of tearing flesh even from there. His erroneous commands became another person's precious life. Ken advanced forward in the defense line. The knights must not stop and do not dare to take a single step back. But it wasn't just the man's life that was lost. It was everyone in there who lost their lives because of his one order. It was all the guy's fault. No, it wasn't just his fault. It was him who killed them playing this game. He used the knights as bait whenever it was necessary. This damn game was designed that way. In order to save someone, in order to get an item, in order to complete a side quest, in order to gain achievements, someone must die. And he gladly sacrificed them and did not doubt a single thing that he had done so far. But now I realize that any death is accompanied by a heartbreaking pain. They will not stop. Simple screams. We'll never make them stop. Lucas was angry, very angry. How the monsters dared aim at His Majesty. The only option to make them stop is to kill them before they kill them. The gun was loaded for the fourth shot, but the boy's eyes were already bleeding. He could still shoot and tried very hard for everyone. The fourth shot, the blow, it was a direct hit to the head, but the bloody queen was still alive. Their attacks have no effect. The cannon is at its limit. If they try again, it will simply explode. Is this the end? The cannon is on the verge of destruction. The defense line is broken. Their shooter can't open his eyes. Is this really the end? Was there really not a shred of hope left? And instead of undoubtedly doing damage to the queen, her skin peeled off. A scout, even in this situation, he was confident in his role to the end. If they could shoot again, he would destroy it. Everything was destroyed. The whole world, the hope of victory. Absolutely everything. His Highness flew down. Science was able to save him. The sacrifice of himself. Before his death, he reminded him of the events of 20 years ago. He can't remember it. Like a player who has taken over someone else's body, he has no memories, not of him or Ash. When His Highness appointed him as his personal guard, what Ko said was that even if he couldn't become an emperor, he would become the coolest person in the world. And as the one who would become his knight, he would strive to become the coolest of them all. And even though it was in the days when he was still a teenager, his words touched his heart so much that he didn't forget them until today. Lucas trusts His Highness like himself. Everything was destroyed on Luca. He should have held on. He's the main character, the savior of this world can't die in a place like this. He should end it all. Are they somewhere under an artillery unit? How long was he unconscious? The Damians are all gunners. Luckily, they seem to have escaped with fatal injuries, which can't be said about the cannon. Why are they all still alive at all, and where are the spiders? There was a girl standing behind it and defending everyone with her ability. It won't last long while blocking the entrance, but soon the monsters will besiege them and break through these walls. They don't have time. They need to hurry. Don't let them die. It's pointless. He told all the gunners to quickly stand up and load the last shell. The cannon was already over the limit. If they fired again, it would explode. And if they continued to do nothing, they would die under the monsters. Pause. Who doesn't take risks? Doesn't drink champagne, right? They have to do it even if they have to burn out, and you can't see how they're going to aim from here. The gun rack is lost. They'll have to hold it with their hands. If they don't have teeth, they'll have to chew with their gums. There's no need to aim. Damien just needs to make a shot. He ordered the last projectile to be loaded. He doesn't know exactly how the 1000-mile eye skill works, but as long as Damien shoots, it will always hit the target. So all they can do is just believe. He approached the guy with bloodied eyes. This is the last shot that he needs to make. Just one shot. He asked to get together and gain strength for one more time. He asks, what's the point of this? If it doesn't matter what he does, nothing changes. If he hits again, the monster will die. No, it's not about that at all. Let's say he pulls the trigger again and the queen really dies. Then what will change? Half of his are already dead. Even if he destroyed all the enemies, he couldn't bring them back. No matter how hard he works, no matter how hard he tries, this world keeps taking something away from him. He wants to end it all. He doesn't want to live in a world like this anymore. If he thinks that this world is not working properly, he thinks that even if he overcomes a huge obstacle on his way, life will continue to be hell. Well, he thinks correctly. If this world has a level of difficulty, then it is definitely hellish. From the very beginning, this was a world with hellish complexity and Iron Man mode. This place is unfair to the point of absurdity. There will never be anything in it according to him. Life is like this. Who doesn't know it? They live surrounded by a devastated landscape. Is he going to stop fighting, want to give up and lie there waiting to die? Is this a worthy reason? They should continue to fight until they die, the guy agreed. He will continue and come up with a whole new strategy until the very end. If the boy wants to give up and die, then let him cut his throat with this sword right now. Have the courage. Let him dare, if he is not a coward. He needs to be the trigger. Stop looking back at his dead friends. The only one he needs to continue is His Highness as the commander. No need to look for trivial reasons to survive. That's all that's needed from Damien. The hero unlocked the passive skill, Indomitable Commander, and gave him the order to smash the ugly face of this F******ing monster. The boy followed his orders with the last shot loaded, but they can't cool the gun at this rate. He said that he would support you, but the cannon is incredibly hot. If you touch it, the consequences will be much more deplorable than moderate burns. His Highness will rather burn here than go to hell and burn in the fire there. The boy couldn't feel his eyes or his hands, but it was all right. All he had to do was shoot. They raised their fire cannon and Damien fired directly at the monster. Although it was initially an impossible task to shoot at the enemy, which is impossible to see from the collapsing front, it would turn out to be no chance at all. However, the projectile flies directly to the Spider Queen, ignoring the height, ignoring the distance, and ignoring hundreds of thousands of other monsters. As if following the chosen path, it flew to the queen that screamed from fear and anger and hit her right in the head without the slightest error. Just took and blew her head to hell. When in the game he seemed to swallow his tongue, did not know how best to respond to the first message from the viewer that he received since he started streaming. He wanted to subscribe to it. Well, then he replied it would be better if he rested more. The guy ended up in bed. Damien treated him with magic, but since the burns he received are quite severe, it will take much longer to recover. He slept for 3 days. The girl already thought that he would not wake up after what he had to go through in order to defeat the spider army. The girl survived thanks to the command. His Highness, after the last shot, the queen died. Without her, the spiders froze and stopped moving. They won. The support army took the bodies of their allies and also took care of the remaining spiders. The cleaning is more or less finished, His Highness. He received severe burns on his hands and forearms and neck. He will have to visit the church on his return, but even after a full recovery, a couple of scars will remain. Scars, a much more modest price to pay than life. The girl ended up in a wheelchair when she ran out of mana. The spider wounded her back, but right after that, the queen died and no one else attacked her. But apparently, because of the damage to the lumbar nerves in the lower part of her body, she no longer moves, even if she is so grateful that she is still alive. Among the survivors are 5 gunners, Lucas, Damien, and Her Highness, all 9 of them. At the time of the last battle, there were several hundred of them, and only 9 remained. Well, if there was another way, another tactic that he had overlooked, shouldn't there have been a way to save at least one more person? It was impossible to save everyone in that situation, the girl reassured him. He did everything he could, but he was the one who dragged the soldiers there. Even if it was the old Ash, and not specifically him, but it is in his body and is responsible for this. Who would have thought that the monsters would move in droves after so many decades? That's why no one stopped this valuable military campaign, so he shouldn't be here, so. Lucas stormed in and started crying. He was happy that His Highness had survived and was fine. Wasn't he seriously injured himself? It's normal for him to be hanging around here. Of course he was injured, but his strength is that being very cool. He finished and made a list of those killed in battle. There were a lot of people whose bodies they managed to find, but they tried to collect as many as possible. Now the corpses are on the northern plane of the forward operational base. The Highness wanted to take a look, but he didn't need to recover. They died under his command. He would still go, and also called Lucas with him. It was quite comfortable riding on his back, and you can't tell if the guy wants to be his favorite horse. Damien's eyes were fine yesterday. Her vision started to slowly return. Now she can see again as usual. His Highness heard that the guy himself was healing the wounded. Walked around using magic, at least at that moment he couldn't see. Once again, he was faced with harsh realities. The strategy was only successful because of him. If he wanted, he would give him enough money, and he would not need anything for the rest of his life. Make sure that he would never set foot on the battlefield again. First of all, he is a mercenary, and free to do as he pleases. But His Highness told him that this is the treasure, and he wants to know the origin of these creatures, who created these monsters, when and why his friend had to die. So he asked to be allowed to follow him. His Highness agreed. Then from now on, he is following him to honor the memory of the dead. They need a priest. He understands that there was no better way to improve the strategy. But there is nothing more stupid than asking that if thinking about the past, he chose a tactic, researched it, and such a result, he should take responsibility and carry it on his shoulders in order to move forward. At the end of an informal funeral, you need to collect trails and bring them to the crossroads every year. Human losses amount to thousands in this world where funerals are more expensive than life. There is an empty field on the west side of the intersection. You need to bury them there. Pay your respects on the west field. And he plans to build a cemetery where he built a memorial object in the game. And the last day of February will be designated as the day of their sacrifice. And not just this day, for all the characters that he killed without any remorse hundreds of times. Passing the game, this is his redemption. He will never fail for anything again. Now he goes to the main base, Crossroads. After leaving the forward operational base for the 3rd day now, they are moving north to the intersection. It was a very long drive. The guy was dying of boredom. Is this yak some kind of food if he doesn't ask? Then soon, a table appeared in front of him. He can choose his class. It's more likely to make a decision. He apnulled the 5th level after completing training in this game. The class is determined just on the 5th. The growth of stats was terrible and some kind of lame Persian. The most interesting thing is that despite the increase in characteristics, he can choose any class that is available in the game. The problem was drawn. At the end of the list, for the first time, he sees something like Commander Novice. He doesn't even know what category it is. A special class that is available after completing training. Is it a so-called hidden class or something? The skill that he received back then is also Indomitable Commander. Apparently this is a hint that he should choose a commander class. This is a great skill, but useless at the beginning of the game. Mental debuffs do not appear soon. It was risky to choose a class that he didn't have any information about. He could see an intersection ahead and they were finally there. Paridkreskum was the name of a fortress built on the southern edge to stop the monsters that were constantly climbing out of the Black Lake. At first, this fortress was the most important in the empire, but gradually the invasion of monsters came to naught and the army was redirected somewhere else. Due to the lack of an army to defend the fortress, mercenaries were accepted. Veterans preparing to retire or newcomers with no experience for mercenaries did not play a role. Not their nationality, nor the qualifications of the empire. Just needed human shields to support this front line. When life itself lost its value, restaurants, hotels, and banks began to appear here. A decade later, the fortress turned into a city. And at one point, people stopped calling it that. Instead, the fortress is called the Fortress City. There was also another name that sounded like a mockery of the mercenaries who flew to their deaths, blinded by money just like moths, Suicide Street, City of Tombstones. This place is the Maginot Line, an intersection, despite through the screen on air understood. But the city is still bigger than he thought. And where battered is this city that he will be in charge of anyway? He just feels the air get heavy. Well, he understands their newly appointed commander and lord, and barely came back alive after slaughtering his troops. However, he knew that something like this could happen. So he brought the magic crystals with him and specially put over 400 black spider magic crystals in the cart, allowing them to be seen. Since they were high-level monsters, these crystals were extremely high quality and it was hard to guess how much they were worth. So expensive that for a while you can completely forget about money. Besides, he must receive a reward for Witch Totic for passing an impassable location. To move smoothly through the story, it is important to cooperate with citizens. Now their trust in him is reduced to 0. He knows how to increase this trust. Just wait. Explore in the most effective way. He will buy all their hearts. He arrived at the crossroads of the Lord's Manor. He was surprised. Isn't this the place he will live in? It doesn't compare to the house he lived in before. Never would have thought that he would cry from such a dream home. A guy ran up to him. He was very happy that Lore was alive. He apologized for calling the guy Milord. He will call him His Highness from now on. He was very worried about the fact that he was injured. Poor servant here in the heat, then in the cold, and then generally thought that the gray hair will remain this annoying guy around whom the smell of a traitor flies around. His name is Eider. In the game, he is an NPC that manages the city. All administrative tasks of the intersection are a concern, and the construction of facilities to the maintenance of security systems is the same here. He will manage the city together with him. Taking the guy to the palace said that he had already typed in the bathroom and cooked dinner, but His Majesty only ordered that the soldiers rest well, and also Lucas he also had to rest. A relaxing bath with hot water that he hadn't had in a long time, and the trip had been extremely exhausting, so he was going to have a full night's rest. The boy should have rested today too, the Lord said. That would be incredible, Mr. Typical Nerd, he said. He was able to complete the training in a way that beyond his imaginary world, there was nothing to hide. He is the director of Empire Defense. It turns out that the person who put it here is him. The main character gave him a slap in the face. He asked the guy to calm down. He had to kidnap him of course, but this world needed him. Now they can chat, so he's the one who sent him those messages, so he's the director of this game, or rather this world. Well, why did he bring the guy here in this world? There is a true ending. The only one that no one has reached. He reset this world countless times in order to achieve it, but he never managed to achieve what he wanted, and he decided to resort to the help of another person. He changed the shape of this world to a game one presented to players from another world. They were able to make good progress in things that he could not even think of. Well, but no one was successful. The guy didn't really make it to it, but he was able to achieve something that no one else could pass the hellish difficulty with the Iron Man mode. Only he was able to pass the game. This is the reason why he is here. The headmaster thought the guy could handle it, that's why he's here. The hero got very angry, he threw him into an impassable training, so also into Ash's body. These are technical chocolates. Well, he didn't expect this either. He asked me to let him start by telling him about the reward he would get if he helped. If he brought this world to its true ending, he would grant him his wish. Theoretically, in this world he is akin to a deity, and it will not be difficult for him to reward generously before returning to Earth. Can he get 10 billion? Why is it so small? Because he can add more. The guy can't get rid of the feeling that he is talking to a fraudster. But honestly, he is interested. He will grant any wish, he could ask for anything. But there is one wish that he would like to turn into life at any cost. If he is not lying, then he has a dream that he would have given up. I think he will never be able to fulfill it. It was then that he realized that this self-proclaimed deity knew more about him than he thought, knew what he regretted, and that he had long lived with that regret in his heart. He can turn a dream into reality. Well, as long as it lives in his heart, he can't give it up. Does the guy have so much strength? Why can't he reach the true ending himself in this world? His abilities are very limited. Here he is, just an ordinary person. Therefore, we need someone who would act on his behalf. Well, what will happen if the guy dies here? If he dies, then the Earth will die to him in peace. Life is a coin game, no save downloads, he thought. Then he understood perfectly well while playing the game, didn't he? True, the game was always like this, taking care of his comfort. But when it came to death, it was ruthless. If he wanted to return to Earth right now, then he would arrange everything here. Following his plan, he should have asked him about it immediately upon arrival. But there was a glitch, also that the guy has time to decide. If he helps him reach the true ending and gets the opportunity to fulfill his dream, or return to his usual peaceful life without putting himself at risk. The choice is only up to him, Mr. Typical Nerd. In another scenario, he turned immediately. But there are two things that prevent him from doing this. The first, the opportunity to fulfill a dream, and the second, not so impossible, right? Confidence, because he has already passed this game and knows almost everything about it. Go again, why not? The guy said that he was going to get to this true ending, so he was counting on mutual help, and let him just try to forget about the promised desire. He instructed to sell all the magic crystals until morning, because this is an exchange and he needs to know where to drop them. But all the shops were already closed. The guy said that he should take his hands and feet and go sell them. When he sells them at night or at dawn, he doesn't care, he just has to finish it all by morning. For such a large number of black spider crystals, you can get a huge amount, even if you sell them at an average price. What is the hero going to do with this pile of money? Does he really need to answer that question? Meanwhile, in the mercenary guild, of course, he's talking about gacha, they'll start with 100 spins. In the morning, the tired director was sitting next to the carts with gold. His Highness and Lucas went into the bar. The guy wanted to enter first, on his Highness, kicked down the door with his foot, and greeted everyone there. The people there were angry at him and talked about dying, but he was their future employer and also a prince. Maybe there's someone shining here. It was a mercenary guild, a place where you can knock out new characters, of course, and the potential depends on the rank. In any case, he needed someone standing, and Jupiter greeted him at the Continental Crossroads Mercenary Guild. The woman was a light mage of the SR rank. The guy can't believe that this is a granny in the Mercenary Guild. He has never seen such a form before. What country does it belong to? It belonged to their ever-black empire, so he must not have recognized it, because this model was created several decades ago. The woman has spent 30 years serving her empire, even serving as a captain in the 2nd Mage Squad, and after retiring, she earns a living by hiring. Even after leaving, she is a model soldier. This is not quite true, it's just that it will be difficult to live on one pension. What brought His Highness here? She asked. Sure to hire someone useful, but isn't he sure that it's not to find the bait that will die in his place? Lucas, his knight protector, was angry and was already reaching for his sword, but the boy stopped him. Rumors of the battle on the front lines were already spreading everywhere, and it seemed that the prince had paid dearly for his incompetence. They may be worthless people who are paid to fight, but they are not idiots to dig their own graves. None of them would entrust their lives to a naive rookie commander. His Highness understands this, but asks to listen. Aren't they here to sell their lives in the end? Aren't they all in this place because they have no other way to make money better? And now they're afraid to do what they're here to do, and they say they're not idiots who dig their own graves. It sounds strange to him to say the least. Lady Jupiter, he said to the woman. Her career is definitely spectacular, but she ended up getting fired for secretly embezzling military funds, isn't it? The girl was amazed at his knowledge. Isn't it the same as digging your own grave, apparently? She could not think that he knew her past. From corruption to smuggling goods, she was caught in disgrace, kicked out of her job, and yet she proudly continues to wear a military uniform. Isn't she ashamed? The epitome of corruption, a corrupt soldier rotten through and through, a disgraced veteran dismissed, a fighter with impressive abilities. The heroine looks more like a pirate than a warrior, it's all about this woman. But even if her career ended on such a bad note, she is still proud to be an imperial soldier. So she asks to watch herself, but how much does she need to offer for her mentioned pride? How much would it sell for? He asks how much it costs to make a hunting dog out of it. No matter what she looks like, she is quite rich, at least 100,000 a year. He suggested 200,000, and also double it. This is a high price for a mercenary, but he is the prince of the empire and the lord of this city. Moreover, he just sold all 400 magic crystals. Maybe it's not a waste at all, it's an opportunity to buy an SR rank. He is willing to pay any price. And also he will pay for her fear of death. He will give twice the original bid. Cowards who don't want to sell their lives can go home to mommy. Well, if they're real mercenaries looking to make big bucks, they should come to the empty field west of the intersection tonight. The next place he went was a church. Everything went well, however. A small scar remained. The saint was happy to help him. This is the hidden heroine of the R rank, the best healer, Saint Margaret. Later, he will be able to recruit her by fulfilling certain conditions. But that's not why he's here today. She brought everyone who is free at the moment. Damien was there. He sees that he has adapted well, then they are leaving right now. They have a lot of things to do. Today will not be easy. That evening in the west of the intersection, coffins arrived from the forward base. The hero noticed a pendant lying next to one. The soldiers were lined up properly. The imperial flag was painted on every coffin, and the choir sang. In a city where death is so common and cheap, dignified funerals like these were rare sights. The most important thing is that the families of the victims were paid monetary compensation. People began to whisper shocked amounts. The news was passed from mouth to mouth and spread among the townspeople. Rumors always spread quickly. He is not going to embellish anything. Yes, this idea, but it is justified. Here on the front line, their struggle should be known as noble mission for humanity. He is the third prince and a newly unassigned lord. He greeted the people and said immediately, continuously on the front line, everyone will die. That woman also came, and he went on to say that every week there would be more graves here in the cemetery, and the choir would play again and again. He asked to be allowed to explain their deaths. They cost a lot more than their survival. Funeral expenses and compensation payments didn't hit the wallet so much. Almost half of the money earned from selling the crystals went to all this, but death shouldn't be cheap. Therefore, he will try to save all their lives, try to do everything possible to keep them alive and continue working on the front line. So even if they don't try to die so easily, they should live and shake as much money from him as and not force him to spend money on their expensive funeral. Guns were fired into the sky, he said everything he wanted. Now I wonder how the townspeople will take it. Maybe an incompetent commander is making excuses or a vile lord is throwing money around. I don't care what they think of him. He will prove to them with results that he is worthy of being worth more than anyone else. It's time to clear the first location. After the funeral, he went to the backyard of Manor. The system asked if he wanted to activate the teleportation gate, of course yes. Lucas was shocked. What is this gate that will take them to the dungeon under the lake? This passage will lead them directly to the enemy base. Empire defense combines two genres: tower defense and dungeon clearing. It's even written on the cover of the game. Locations with monsters attacking crossroads refers to tower defense. But in the breaks between passing locations, when monsters are not attacking, he can explore the dungeons under the lake and learn about the origin of monsters. This is clearing Danshi, so-called open world. An important mechanic for completing the game. As expected, you can activate it before completing the first location. It's a hell of a difficult game. But it's not so logical. Yes, he suffered a lot during the training. But now he has quite a good start. He has, consider the cheat character Damien and an AoE damager of the SR rank, Jupiter. In addition to the fact that he also has a lot of money, the passage seems to be feasible. The prince explained the rules of the game to Lucas and said that they were going to scout the enemy base before the next location. Lucas must have been the one who had the most questions. The prince he had served all his life had suddenly changed, and also knew about the structure of the city and the location of the dungeon, despite being in this city for the first time. It's enough to arouse suspicion, but Lucas silently continued to follow his orders. It's strange enough. Isn't there something he wants to ask? But he just follows his orders. He has no questions. He is his shield and sword. He kills and protects on his orders. The hero can't believe that he has no questions, but Lucas says that he trusts him. And it seems that this loyalty is stronger than doubts. A little later, he will definitely reward him handsomely. Whether his partner is ready to enter hell with him, he will gladly follow the Your Highness. They teleported. Characters can be enhanced with equipment. Equipment can be obtained in dungeons or made in the forge. Our hero was very angry. When the pop-up windows with tips stop, it's too late to pretend to be a caring game. They were at the site of the Black Lake, the source of monsters, the hell that creates nightmares, the dungeon located on the southern edge of the world. Then living armor appeared out of the water. Why? Why them? He didn't care who met in the first location with goblins, mermaids, or live wyverns. There were so many low-level monsters, but why did he get the only ones he wanted to avoid? It's all his luck. And here are the monsters that they have to finish off again. Updated information about the opponents. There were a whole 1,000 of them. His Highness turned pale, probably not feeling well. But I think he already said it. I don't want to repeat it in training, but it's very bad for them. That's many times he started the game from the very beginning, but there were different reasons. But if at the very beginning he was waiting for live armor, he reset the game without hesitation. Live armor fully corresponds to its name, only a ghost is hidden under the armor. This means that this type of monster is extremely resistant to physical attacks. It becomes easier to fight them by the second half of the game, when the hero has a lot of different equipment. But so far, everything is very, very bad. It felt like he was being bullied, like someone was deliberately interfering with the game. It was 3 days before the opening of the first location. They need to leave. There is no other choice but to do everything in their power to protect. He ran to Eider and asked what the state of the city's military strength was in total. They had 526 people capable of standing on the front lines. How could he make 100 pools and only get 500 people? During the training of most of their soldiers, you made the hero very angry, but they have already recruited all the mercenaries who came to their city. There is no way they can accept more. Unfortunately, this is within the capabilities of the city. When you need to send word to other cities and bring more soldiers here, let them say that they will double the usual rate. The Imperial Palace needs to be dispatched too, and let them tell you that the monsters have begun to awaken and are asking for as many reinforcements as possible. If they ask for reinforcements from the Empire now, then a devastating event will occur later in the game. But what can he do because he must survive? He asks that all the carpenters, masons, blacksmiths, and alchemists in the city be gathered to work in their interests. If he does, the production of magic stones will stop, the city is about to be pulverized, and he is worried about the production of pebbles. The current difficulty level of the game, full of ADAs he couldn't decide, but he doesn't think he has time to wait any further. The harder the game, the more changes he needs to introduce. That's why he decided to take the risk. He decided to become a rookie commander. He had a strange feeling. A 50% debuff was applied to growth stats, and a 50% debuff would also be applied to the item's proficiency skill. Are they kidding me? The prince shouted. Why did they give him a bunch of debuffs? He got different skills: attack totem, super buffer, main order, team synergy. System windows appeared in front of him. He can buff all his soldiers, it turns out. Even if he just stands on the field, everyone's attack and defense increases. Now he understands why he was buffed. Honestly, it's impressive. The synergy of the team is an advantage of the commander class. Depending on the combination of classes of team members, they will receive different bonuses. A certain system of interconnection of party classes, for a gamer like him, this class is ideal. The next day, the hero asked Eider to explain what happened. The fact is that no one responded to their orders, and he was in a hurry to bring only the union leaders. In fact, he kidnapped them. The leaders were indignant. The first was the leader of the blacksmiths, the other of the carpenters, the third of the masons, and the fourth of the alchemists. Now they're all mad at the prince. Their veins are all over the place, and they should have apologized, but all he said was that they wanted to die. Where are they and how dare they yell at him at the top of their lungs? He is their prince and lord, if he calls. They must leave all their business and run here on all fours. How dare they hurt his feelings, whether they really want to give up their lives or not. They apologized for the first time the prince is their lord, which is a rare occasion when it's nice to be Ash, and then the negotiations went like clockwork. He's offering them 20% of all the magic stones that the army will collect. At a price below the market value, the possibility of directly purchasing the stones would be beneficial for them, wouldn't it? So we need to establish a trade relationship. In return, whenever he orders military equipment to be manufactured first, of course he will pay fairly based on performance. He asks if this is a good deal for all of them. Using money and power, he managed to persuade them. At the moment, negotiations are the only that he can do. Does it make him a materialist? But what else is left, so there is nothing more reliable in the world than money. There are 2 days and 13 hours left before the first location. Lucas has probably already told them everything. 1,000 living armors are moving towards the city. They will arrive in about 2 days. He can tell from their faces that everything is going to be very bad. But then what do you need to do, everyone? That you can also listen to it carefully. The guy will give his best. The soldiers will make mistakes. You need to lead them. Although Lilia was not in the best condition, he is very sorry. But right now they need her more than ever, of course. She will not be on the front line, so do not worry. She will be responsible for the water artifact. He once again apologized but can't fire it. She is a civil servant, which means she will work all her life. Then Jupiter asked about the salary. If she shows a good result, she can increase, right? What a money-mad granny. She is crazy about money, especially gold, just like in the game, of course. Depending on the effort involved, the salary can increase. Then he should think in advance where to get so much money to pay her salary next year. There is no other mercenary that would work harder worked in the name of money. She was the captain of a special unit. Eder had prepared something especially for Damien. It was a crossbow. He is a long-range shooter. Although his posture gave off some uncertainty, judging by how he handled the cannon back then, he should be fine. And where are his glasses? Doesn't he wear them anymore? His eyes really see perfectly. He doesn't need them anymore. He used to wear them to make his vision worse. But now the Emperor needs his eyes, and he is not going to wear them anymore. It was a relief for the director. He was so worried that there would be someone else with glasses, the hero told him. Stand in silence. After discussing the strategy at the south wall of the intersection, he found out about the condition of the walls. But the restoration of them was neglected for a long time. So the condition is not the best. So he knows the fort well. He turned to the director. Isn't the repair of the walls the basis of the basics? How could he allow this? There was no money. The fewer monsters that appeared, the fewer stones that could be obtained. The previous city lord had reduced their budget. Wasn't this fort built primarily to deter monsters? The fort's function has been reduced due to reduced revenue. How contradictory. It doesn't care how much money or materials they spend. You need to strengthen and restore the wall so that it looks like it's already too much. You need to start quickly. The monsters will not make a mess. Meanwhile, in the workshop for the next 2 days, the guys have to make walls. Yes, he said the walls are so high, they also block the path. The commander-in-chief apologized. But the monsters will easily break through the walls. He doesn't need them, some mega strong ones to hold back the enemy. He just needs to do as he says. He just needs wooden walls. The widest and tallest that have ever been made. During the remaining 2 days, they made the necessary preparations. Time flew by in the blink of an eye on the south wall of the intersection. One of the caretakers noticed the monsters. They were approaching. There was nothing to be afraid of. They were just a bunch of hopeless armor, but this was not the case at all. Live armor, the worst monsters you can encounter in the first half of the game. They are the strongest army in the southern part of the empire, which is not true again. In fact, they are just a scattered group of mercenaries, consisting of pensioners and novice amateurs. The water magic was ready and the equipment was in excellent condition, and again untrue. No matter how much money is false, they will never be fully ready. They would easily stop them, the prince said. There was no reason to worry, but he was trying his best to convince them otherwise, so he shouted at the top of his voice to follow his instructions. Then tonight they'll raise their glasses to victory on this field, just one worried man. He said he was leaving it to Jupiter. Half of their power at this stage depends only on her. It's time to go, recruits, she said. The light mage he paid a lot of money for went on the offensive. All the monsters had one common goal, to kill people who met on the way. If there are no obstacles, they will try to get as close to people as possible. In other words, it is obvious which way they will move, so the traps work perfectly. They didn't have time to get them deep enough, and it worked pretty well as it was. Now it's time. Jupiter. Let her earn more money. She used the lightning zone skill. She shouted out why they were staring. You need to respect your elders, monsters. This pattern, just the same, marked Jupiter. Today for dinner, there will be fried armor. The main thing is not to choke. She used the second skill, re-lightning. The first skill puts marks on enemies who have received damage, and the second one finishes the marked targets. This sight was amazing, but still, there were a whole 1,000 enemies. The attack just now was nothing but a small dent. He ordered Jupiter to retreat. She shouted to the new recruits. Don't look back, but keep moving forward. Everything is still as planned. His Highness orders everyone to get ready. Just a little more, just a little more. They are moving towards the gate. Jupiter's team ran in. Well done. Welcome. It looks like they're new to the world of damn walls. Now it's their turn or they'll destroy. Why does he ask everything and it's so obvious? If he sees a goal, he goes to it. Of course, this is true. If they completely blocked the way, they would easily destroy the walls. And now they have to crowd in a small space. The hero ordered to prepare for shooting. Their ranks are getting narrower. They lose mobility. They have waited so long for this. Open fire and do not save charges. Monsters flew fireballs, the basis of the basics among the strategy of defensive games. This is the control of the path, the death zone. He ordered to continue shooting. The monsters weren't even able to overcome this point. If this continued, wouldn't it be enough? Not at all. Not yet. It can't end so easily. Here they are strong. The hero expected this. So he prepared. He shouted to Lilia to activate the gravity field artifact. She immediately did so. It activated. Their movement slowed down. He told Lucas to act. Ballisterius, get ready and aim for the soul core. They fired several rounds. You need to increase the damage done using crossfire and finish them off with an artifact in ballisti. All that is fine and according to plan. But then he was informed that the monster was going around the walls. How is this possible? He thought that this could happen. But more people came up with it than he expected. He ordered Jupiter that those living armor that came from the right side would be on her. You need to drive them away with tactics. Hit and run. They immediately stepped into battle. She was doing a great job with the block on the other side. Now you need to deal with the armor on the other side. Now it was Damien's turn to shoot the monsters that came from the left. He ordered him. He just pulled the trigger and hit the head of the eye clearly from 1,000 miles away. To think that they could pierce the core of the soul with a normal arrow. He was still a cheat skill after all. Killbox in the center. Jupiter on the right. Damien on the left. The number of defeated has exceeded 450. They are really approaching 500. At this rate, no difficulties should arise until the boss declares himself. Nice to see that their preparations were bought. But what is it? Souls flew up. There was nothing like this in the game. The number of defeated exceeded 500. This is the boss of the army of living armor. The Ghost Knight. He gives strength to the Legion. The Legion in principle is strong in itself. But even after dealing with it, they are also waiting for the boss. After all, they only finished half of it. Why did he appear so soon? The Ghost Knight didn't show any resistance, didn't apply a debuff, didn't attack, just floated in the air doing nothing. However, this is not just a game. This is a reality. Just because of the appearance of a huge monster in the sky. The soldiers panicked. This is the difference between the usual war and the one against monsters. The second awakens a primal fear of the incarnation of supernatural ugliness. The appearance of the boss monster scares the soldiers. As if putting the remnants of the front line on their knees. Moreover, not only people are terrified, but also animals. The horse Jupiter got excited and threw it to the ground, thereby wounding it. These monsters rushed forward to kill the person right under their noses, that is, Jupiter. Before the magician came people with swords and shields, they are obliged to protect her. Jupiter is a key element of the first location and her party is in danger. Lucas said that they should deploy cannons and artillery to support the Jupiter squad. But this should not be done in any case, if the killbox disappears enemies leaking through the walls. More than that, the soldiers in a panic because of the boss appearance, the cannons and ballisti stopped firing. The already poor defense momentarily weakened. You need to focus on restoring the killbox. All the soldiers went crazy. He apologized to Jupiter and asked her to hold on. Jupiter woke up and saw blood on her hands and also did not understand where she was. Where she was climbing in her years. A man was shouting at her and trying to bring her to her senses. They need to leave. What a terrible situation they are in. It looks like she doesn't have time to lie on the ground for mother. The rescue team will be there soon, just need to hold on until then. The man hit the monster's face. But why is he still standing up after hitting it with such a weapon? A new recruit from behind, a woman shouted at him. But he was stabbed with a sword. He was sure that he had killed everyone nearby. But this was not the case at all. Jupiter was very angry. She would deep fry them all, but she could not control the magic behind the wounds. Her entire team was attacked by monsters and killed. One of the guys was so scared that he ran away. But the monster's arrow caught up with him. The tiny defense line of just a few men was destroyed in an instant. And Jupiter could smell the living armor in front of her. The stench of rusty armor and blooming water. The smell of men. They should have stayed at the bottom of the lake. Why couldn't they just let Granny make some easy money? She said very weakly after her attack, even less than a quarter of what she could have done before and now. A boy ran up and told her to run, at least one of them should survive. She would buy time for him so that he could escape. But he couldn't afford it. Staying was the best option for him. She was a mage. The second rule of mercenary survival was to always stay close to a mage from the squad. He had a much better chance of surviving by staying close to her than running away without even having a horse. The little one's strategy was effective. He didn't kill the living armor, but pushed it away with his spear. He held it in any way possible until it was ready for the next spell. Damien was providing support while inside the castle walls. But it wasn't enough to stop all the enemies. By the time Jupiter was able to gather enough energy to create a single lightning bolt, the brave boy's body was pierced by spears, which angered her. She would have hit the monsters if she could gather enough. The amount of energy a few seconds faster would have saved the little guy. She was too old to take death personally. And she told the recruit what the first rule of a mercenary survival was: not to take on a job that paid a suspiciously large sum of money. Despite all his rules for survival are wrong, he will not be able to make it as a mercenary if follows them, if he wants to be rich, if he wants fame. You only need to take on the work that is very dangerous and for which they also pay a lot of money. You need to stay as far away from the mages as possible, because Mac will take all the responsibility. First of all, if he wanted to survive, he should never have been a mercenary. She doesn't even have enough energy to light a cigarette, and she thought life would be easier after she gets a high salary. And it will end like this. She was looking at the army of monsters in front of her, but then Lucas appeared with his army to protect her. Some time ago at the wall of the fortress, he said that Jupiter could not help now and shouted at the soldiers that they were afraid from the same size of the monster. The knight shouted in all voices, "No fear." Now he was afraid of what was happening. Could it be the indomitable commander skill that grants all soldiers within a 10-meter radius immunity with a mental debuff? He remembered that he can calm down all the soldiers and restore the kill box, so he must lead the rescue team, open the gate and save the Jupiter squad. He had to go to the Valley of Death and save his comrade, an incredibly stupid order, but he didn't even hesitate. The prince trusts him. He told all the soldiers to come to their senses quickly, while Lucas and his team fought off the monsters. He told the woman to hold on tight, then grabbed her, put her on a horse and rushed back. While they were driving, a woman offered to introduce him to her granddaughter. She is a lovely girl. If she has the power to joke, it is better to use them to restore her magic. There are still a lot of monsters. He was very nice to his master, but when the prince is not around, it gets colder than ice in any case. She thanked him for saving her. No need to thank him. He just follows His Highness' orders and also apologized for not being able to arrive earlier. They'll regret it after they've dealt with all the monsters. It's been a long time since she was this angry. Thanks to the indomitable commander's skill, Killbox was restored in time. They managed to return unharmed. Well, he lost 4 precious heroes, Ron, Pecker, Gia and Toyn, because he was too confident in his game experience and where he had to manage the soldiers. Mentalka, there were similar states like fear and distraction. But here, the feelings of the soldiers are more diverse and complex. He never expected that the horses would also get scared. He needs to take into account more variables. Since this is reality, the flames that spread because of the artillery cannons are also the result of reality. The killbox is falling apart. It looked like he was going to have to repel it all along the ramparts. And he wanted to end it all with a single artillery barrage. Fortunately, there aren't many monsters left. Their goal is definitely doable. The flames of battle are still under his control. Lucas said that he had delivered Dame Jupiter. He was reluctant to add the title to the name Jupiter. He did not want to approve of her because of the reason for the dismissal. But it was right of him to show respect. His Highness was glad that she was alive. She was ashamed that she was an old hag who made so many mistakes. And because of her, the recruits died in vain. It's a shame. She couldn't have known that a monster would suddenly appear in the sky. Just like she didn't know that the horses would go crazy. It wasn't her fault, the girl still insisted. Standing on the battlefield at her age and with her experience under her belt, she had to react properly. So she will pay for it. She will be the one to take this monster's head off. Focus on her recovery, the man told her. Her strength will be needed very soon. Killbox no longer performs its function. You need to stop firing. He told Damien to rest, but the enemies are approaching. A bigger fish has appeared for him, so you need to rest and recover a little. The enemy reached the walls of the fortress. Realizing that the walls of the front could not be destroyed, they began to climb them. His Highness ordered to prepare for close combat. The close combat team went ahead. A battle without magic based solely on physical strength. This is the beginning of a real war. He said to drop stones on the climbing monsters. These pieces of steel stones and other debris left after reinforcement and which he piled at the top of the front, so that many of the living armor that was thrown on the ground broke on it. But some managed to get up again after falling. How annoying this will to live. They kept climbing despite all the damage falling on them, so the prince ordered them to shoot down their copies. It's time to reorganize Party Jupiter, the main link. The defenders of the team's territory don't lose morale, and the attack power of the elements has increased by 20%, which is great, and now the enemies are already here. From now on, the battle ceases to be one-sided. Will the soldiers cope? Lucas will destroy the monsters. Their task is to stand still and restrain them. The knights obeyed him. It's not even about whether they can do it or not. They have to do it to survive. All the soldiers have to be stronger. They have no choice but to fall, get up again, fight and win. He shouted to Lily to activate the artifact on haste. She activated the artifact on speed. The movement speed of all comrades was increased by 5% in minutes. In addition, equipped skills will help them in close combat. They must push monsters and throw them down. You need to try. One of the skills of Lucas is Iron Will Strike. The more enemies he kills, the stronger he becomes. Lucas alone dealt with enemies. But this is not enough. They lose. They have wounded. You need to raise such soldiers. Unlike living armor, the number of wounded on their side only grew. Damien wanted to return to the front line, but he had to use his against the boss just like Jupiter. So what should they do? There had to be a way to reduce the number of casualties and get rid of the remaining enemies. Lilia used her magic. It amazed the commander-in-chief. Is she a mage? She's always been one. It's amazing. He'll promote her later. She didn't want it. Just asked her to be fired. It's like using fire. She spent a lot of mana so drained. He will also pay her a solid bonus. You need to push. And the girl just wants to retire. Her mom is over. You need to do it for the last time. 20 prowess from synergy plus 5 from the attack totem. And that fire magic was increased by 25%. He was glad she was doing fine. Flamethrower. One more time. At least he could address her as a human. So the soldiers held the enemy back. Lucas cut them down with his sword and Lilia burned them to hell with her fire. Everyone hoped this was the end. They stopped them. They did it. They did it. This wasn't the end of it, His Highness told them. They couldn't let their guard down. There was still one left. The boss had appeared in front of them. Damn her reality. If that even made sense, it couldn't possibly be the boss of the first Loki. The Highness ordered himself not to dare to be afraid. This is only the boss of the first stage and he is only level 25. He ordered them to fire their guns and not save their charges but keep firing. Hurry up until he reached the fort walls. Despite the flames that the Ghost Knight was engulfed in, he took a step forward. This monster's tenacity is not lacking. He shouted to the girl to activate the third artifact. She did it. The R-rank artifact multiplier is able to increase the effect of the character's magic spells by 100%. This was done for Jupiter. The spell effect was increased for her. Weird. Just like in her golden days. She has to do it like the last time she hits a breastplate. She told the prince to be careful. No one will pay him compensation if he gets an electric shock. She struck a blow to the core of the soul. He shouted to Damien to shoot as quickly as possible. They hit the bullseye. It was a great shot, that's all, but how could it not be enough? If he brought down his sword, he would destroy the walls of the fort. Okay, yelled for Jupiter to strike again, raising her weapon so high in the middle of a thunderstorm that the monster was just about to hit it with lightning. The blow pierced right through him but the sword fell right on the castle walls. Luca asked, is everything okay with His Highness? But the wall was terrible. It collapsed. But they finally managed to kill the Ghost Knight monster. Isn't it dangerous here? Everything is fine, he replied to his knight. He recognized this pattern. This is what a flash of anger looks like from the realization of imminent death. Display of fear, confusion, and madness. This attack does not deal damage but it can drive you crazy. Here begins the territory of people. So the monster should get out. He activated the Indomitable Commander skill and turned it only into dust. Everyone wondered where such a huge monster went. This is all the ghosts the prince got rid of from them. Is this the end? The sky brightened. They won and managed to survive. They will continue to win, terrorizing the monsters with their vitality. The fear that could be read in the soldier's eyes began to recede. He saw Lucas laughing confidently with the joy of victory. No idea if it was due to his passive skill or the ability to interpret speeches. But it was still nice. They will destroy all the monsters and live. All he did was shout from the bottom of his heart. For protecting the location he got a gift. It was Jupiter.